Ezekiel was not a king. He was not a warrior. He was not even in his homeland. He was a priest in exile. Jerusalem had fallen. The walls that once seemed eternal had been broken. The streets that held his childhood had turned to ash. And the temple, the very heart of Israel, the place where people believed heaven touched earth, was gone. For Ezekiel, exile was not just a change of location. It was a spiritual wound, a quiet, humiliating question that followed him every day. If the temple is destroyed, where does God go? He lived among captives on the plains of Babylon, far from sacred hills and familiar stones. His people were scattered, some broken, some angry, some numb. They worked Chujik fields, spoke under foreign skies, and tried to remember songs that suddenly felt too painful to sing. And it was there, beside a river called the Shabar, that something happened. Not in a temple, not in Jerusalem, not in a dream. Ezekiel would later write that the heavens opened, and what he described would haunt readers for more than 2,000 years because the text never explains what it was. It only tells you what he saw. Ezekiel makes something clear, almost as if he knows people will doubt him. He was not asleep. He was not caught in the soft confusion of a dream, not drifting through symbols. He was awake. One moment, there was the river's slow water, reeds, the distant voices of exile. The next moment, the world changed as if a hidden door had been unlocked in the sky. He noticed the air first, that strange stillness that comes before storms, a pressure that makes the skin tighten, a hush that feels unnatural, as though the earth itself is holding its breath. Then the wind arrived, from the north. Not a wandering wind, not a passing breeze, but a violent storm moving with direction, with purpose. Ezekiel describes it as if it wasn't merely weather, but something approaching. Inside the wind was fire, not fire that simply rises and fades. This fire flashed and folded in on itself. It swirled like a living thing, bright enough to hurt the eyes. And within the fire was light of brilliance so intense it felt wrong, like staring into something not meant for human sight. At the center of this storm, Ezekiel saw something he struggled to name. Something that looked like glowing metal, as if molten bronze had been shaped into form, and it was coming closer. Ezekiel does not say the fire was shapeless. He insists it had structure. As the storm approached, the brightness sharpened into boundaries, edges, forms, movement that was not random. It was as if something was hidden inside the blaze, and the fire was only the outer skin of it. The closer it came, the more Ezekiel realized this was not just a storm. This was not just lightning. This was something descending, something arriving. Then out of the radiance, 4 figures emerged. Ezekiel calls them living creatures, alive, moving, intentional. They stood upright like men, yet they were not human. Their appearance is so strange that Ezekiel repeats details, as if afraid you won't believe him. Each creature had 4 faces, a human face forward, a lion on one side, an ox the other, an eagle behind. Not 4 separate heads, 4 faces, one being looking in all directions at once. Their wings stretched upward and outward, 4 wings each. 2 wings extended toward the others, touching, forming a connected shape, like a living frame. 2 wings covered their bodies as if even they were not meant to be fully seen. Their legs were straight, their feet shone like polished bronze. They moved with a strange kind of precision. No hesitation, no turning. Wherever they went straight forward. It's an odd detail, but Ezekiel emphasizes it because it matters. These beings did not move like animals. They moved like something guided, like something obeying a command. Ezekiel describes their movement like this. When they moved together. Not like 4 separate creatures, but like one coordinated presence. One will express through 4 forms. And when they stopped together. That synchronization, that mechanical, almost perfect unity is part of what makes the account so unsettling. It feels engineered, organized, not wild. And then Ezekiel looks lower beside them, and he sees the wheels. 1 wheel beside each creature. But he immediately tries to correct your assumptions because these were not wheels like carts or chariots. Each wheel looked as if it was inside another wheel, intersecting, crossing, a geometry that doesn't belong to simple objects. Ezekiel says they could move in any direction without turning, forward, sideways, diagonal, no pivot, no rotation the way wheels usually work. The rims were tall, fearfully tall. And then he adds the detail that makes everything feel almost impossible. The wheels were full of eyes. Eyes on the rims, eyes around the structure, eyes everywhere. Not a symbol of decoration, a constant gaze, as if the whole thing was aware, watching. Ezekiel says when the living creatures rose, the wheels rose too. This matters because it means the wheels weren't just objects beside them. They were connected, bound to them, part of them, part of the same system. The creatures moved, the wheels moved, the creatures stopped, and the wheels stopped. The creatures rose, the wheels rose. It is described like a machine and a living being at the same time. And Ezekiel does not pause to explain how that can be true. He just keeps writing, as though the only thing he can do is record it before the memory slips away. Then came the sound. Not a soft flutter of wings. Ezekiel describes it with the biggest comparisons he has. The sound of their wings was like rushing waters, like the roar of a waterfall, endless and heavy, like the sound of a vast army, a thunderous, disciplined force. It wasn't just loud, it carried weight. It made the ground feel alive beneath him, like the world itself was vibrating under the presence of what had arrived. Then the sound stopped. As suddenly as it came, the wings lowered, the air became still again, and in that terrifying silence, Ezekiel heard something else, a voice. Ezekiel lifts his eyes and sees something above the creatures, an expanse, a platform, clear and radiant, like crystal. It stretched above them like a ceiling, separating the beings below from what was beyond. This isn't just background detail. Ezekiel is describing layers, as if reality is structured in levels. Earth below, living beings and wheels, a crystalline expanse above them, and above that, something even more shocking. Above the expanse was what looked like a throne, and on the throne sat a figure, human in form, but not human in presence. Ezekiel tries to describe the figure with the same method as before, not with certainty, with comparisons. From the waist upward, the figure glowed like molten metal, like fire trapped inside a body. From the waist downward, it looked like fire itself. And surrounding the figure was radiance, like a rainbow appearing after rain, encircling the light. It's one of the most beautiful images in all of Scripture, and one of the most terrifying. Because Ezekiel is witnessing something that feels too immense to be seen safely. He falls face down. Not because he's trying to be dramatic, but because his body reacts the only way it can. Instinct. A human being in the presence of something overwhelming. Here is where Ezekiel chooses his words like a man stepping through a field of glass. He does not say, "I saw God." He says, "This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord." Not the glory itself, the likeness of its appearance. Ezekiel is admitting something important. He is not claiming understanding. He is describing perception, what it looked like from the limited viewpoint of a human being. Most prophets speak in poetry. They describe visions using symbols that feel like dreams. Ezekiel's language feels different. He speaks like a witness, like someone describing an event with structure, movement, sound, material coordination, fire, metal, wheels, eyes, a crystalline expanse, a throne. Even if you believe it is purely symbolic, the detail is unusual, and the detail is what keeps the mystery alive, because the text does not pause to decode itself. What the Bible does and does not say. This is crucial. Ezekiel never calls it a vehicle. He never says it was a craft. He never says it was technology. He says it was a vision of divine glory. And yet the Bible also never explains the mechanics of what he saw. No narrator steps in to say, "This wheel means that. This fire symbolizes this. This expanse represents that." The account is left raw, a recorded encounter. That silence is what makes readers restless. The Bible does not answer. It only preserves his words. Because perhaps the point was never to solve it. Perhaps the point was the shock of it, that in the middle of exile, far from the temple, Ezekiel learned something terrifying and hopeful at the same time. The presence of God is not trapped in a building. It can appear anywhere. Even in Babylon, even beside a river, even to a broken priest who thought his world had ended. Ezekiel did not go searching for mysteries. He was in exile by a river, and on an ordinary day the sky opened. A storm came like a living force. Fire wrapped around something radiant. Living creatures moved with impossible precision. Wheels within wheels watched with countless eyes. A crystalline expanse appeared like glass. A throne hovered above it, and a figure of fire and light sat upon it, surrounded by rainbow brilliance. Ezekiel fell to the ground, and when he rose, the world was no longer the same, because he had witnessed something beyond vocabulary, and no one was ever told exactly what it was. Only that it happened. Only that Ezekiel never forgot it, and neither did history.